Hey gang, welcome back to Inverted Pursuits Laboratory. This week, as you can tell by the video description, we're going to talk about parachute protection methods. So after our last video discussing apogee versus nose over deployment, I got a bunch of comments saying that you guys would like to see more videos like this. So this is our first in an attempt of several videos we've been planning out to come up with content that will discuss some of the more interesting things in rocketry and different ways we do things throughout the hobby. So to get into parachute protection methods, we're going to start with our good old classic dog barf. Now, dog barf is a common tongue name that rocketeers use for it. It is cellulose insulation. It's literally shredded newspaper. You can buy this from your local hardware store at Home Depots. It is in a white and green bag. You can buy a brick for like $7 to $10, and it will last you like a decade, or you and your 10 best friends, and now I'm never gonna get that stuff out of the air, a couple of years. Like, that stuff lasts forever. You use such a small amount of it. I usually argue when you're using this, you want to use a good 3 inches between your charge and your parachute, just to really be sure it's not coming out. And you also want to do all sorts of tests and ejection tests beforehand to prove that that's the amount you need. And even if you just dump this stuff outside, like, it's not going to hurt anything. It's literally paper. It is shredded wood. Pretty much just toilet paper and paper that's been recycled to be insulation. But it is great stuff for our hobby, and it is great and biodegradable for the environment. So it is a great thing to use in your rocket. If you're going to use this stuff on dual deploy setups, I recommend you stuff 2-3 inches either side of your parachute. So whatever parachute you're flying in your rocket, I recommend there's an amount below and amount above. A lot of people flying dual deploy will do a motor redundant charge if they're not tying into the top of their motor for their shock cord mount. So their motor will be a redundant charge on top of potentially even flying redundant electronics. They'll have basically the motor as a tertiary charge on the longest delay they can possibly put it on. Unless you're wanting to coast longer than the delay of the motor, then you don't even put in the delay. You don't even put the ejection charge in the motor. But if you're going to have the ejection charge in the motor, I recommend you put below. And then, of course, if you're having it in your ABA, you want it above. If you're doing both, you want it all the way around your parachute to ensure you don't do things like this parachute has a little hole in it. This is coming out of my burnt parachute supply. So I've got a bin full of burnt parachutes that need repaired. This one's actually still usable to the point that I can still fly it, but it does have a hole that needs repaired inside of it. So let's move on to our next parachute protection method, which is parachute covers. So basically, these little parachute shrouds will go around your parachute to protect it. So if I was flying this parachute, a lot of people would say you attach one side with a quick link to your parachute, the other side to your shock cord. At least that's the way. This is a Rocketman chute protector. They call it a flame shield. Attach a shock cord, attach the other side. It is Kevlar, so it shouldn't rip, but it's also sewn. So I don't tend to trust it, and I tend to just loop this side around my shock cord loose and then bring my attachment point up and over. And then within this, I will wrap around my parachute and make my little burrito that then gets shoved in my rocket. Now, if I'm running one of these, you notice there's a little gap there, like a little hole where flame could still get in, and I'm running motor redundant deploy, and so I've faced it down at the motor. I still have a chance of a charge going off and burning this, so I still want to pack dog barf underneath it just to be sure it's safe. Now, this is a Kevlar chute protector. They also make them in FR cloth. Just it's fire retardant cloth. This is a small one I've got that's been damaged beyond repair, but I still like to use it on smaller flights where I can walk out and find it. If I'm only flying to a couple hundred feet, that one's fun. And then I've got this really massive one that needs repaired as well, that I can put around larger chutes. But these chute protectors are either on FR cloth or they are Kevlar. As you can see, I have flown this one and it worked pretty well for my needs. But I still always fly these chute protectors with dog barf. Just in my experience, it's a good insurance on top of it, and it's very little weight on the dog barf. The dog barf adds so little additional weight, it's not a big deal just to add a little bit in there to ensure your parachute doesn't get damaged. Even though the job of this is a flame shield, I still like to add the extra insurance. So if you ever see me out in the field and I'm flying one of these, I guarantee you there's dog barf in my rocket as well. Some people may have different opinions, but I would love to hear those if you've got them. Like, leave them in the comments down below, but that is what I fly. Our last method of parachute protection is known as a deployment bag. This is probably the smallest deployment bag I currently own. It is a 54, or no, sorry. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is a 54 deployment bag. Like, it is a small one. It is really small, but pretty long. So I can put this inside some of my smaller 54 and even a couple 3-inch rockets, even though I've got a 3-inch deployment bag. And this is not just a normal deployment bag, this is a deployment bag with pilot chute. You can buy these without the pilot chute on them, and I know they work. I still don't trust them, because the concept of a deployment bag without the drogue chute is that when it gets ejected out, the parachute, or the inertia of the deployment bag, is greater than the inertia of the parachute, so when it reaches the end of its shock cord and shroud line, it just comes out. I don't trust that. Like, I get the math works, and I get it does work. I've watched it work. My brain just doesn't like it. It doesn't, I refuse to accept that that's how it works, even though I know it's how it works. It makes me a lot comfier knowing that there's something actually producing drag, physically pulling this away from my rocket and my parachute. So that's kind of a quick little demonstration. This is, I believe this is a cross chute. Yep, this is a cross chute. That's a tri-cross. This is a weird one. Made out of some really heavy ripstop nylon. To pack one of these, you would just take a parachute, kind of roughly folded. I'm not folding this properly by any means, and just kind of stuff it into the deployment bag. I'll argue your goal is to get it to like zigzag fold all the way down, so it zigzags in there and you get more of a spring wanting to come back out. But I've seen people just stuff them in there all wadded up, and when it pulls, it comes out just fine. But this chute protector, this parachute does not have an attachment point on it, but the deployment bag does, and that's something that should also be discussed. The deployment bag, I'll have to turn it inside out real quick, has this little tab on the inside, little loop. This is where you attach the deployment bag to your system. Whether you attach it directly to your parachute, if you have a pull down apex parachute, there's usually a cord coming out the center, since the pull down apex creates a toroid, or a conical, not conical, toroidal bowl parachute. There's a dip down at the center, and usually at that center point there's another cable that comes up and attaches to the end of this. And that's where you attach on a toroidal parachute. On other parachutes, what I do is I just put a quick link and a little link of Kevlar, and I run it basically the distance of your parachute. I run it from about a foot above, plus the length of your shroud line, all the way down to your swivel quick link connection point. And that's how long I want it to be, because I want this thing to fully be out of the bag before it reaches the end of its stop point, to ensure that the bag doesn't get hung up on the rocket, or it doesn't get hung up on the parachute. We want to make sure it comes out, and so some people even say like add more than a foot extra, and others, you may have different opinions on the math that you use for flying. That's been my go-to, has been about a foot extra, and it's worked great. I am not going to try and pack this one in here because this parachute is not meant for this deployment bag, so we are going to end up using my piece of FR real quick. It's not quite right. Basically, turn your parachute into taco, or well, I guess hot dog would be what most of us youngsters learned in school. Turn it into a taco or a hot dog and shove it in there, and it should just kind of shove on in. And then after you're done, take your shroud lines and push them all the way down in there until what's sticking out basically is your swivel and your quick link. You'll fold the top on over. Your swivel and your quick link will be sticking out, and then you'll take the entire thing and shove it in your rocket, such that when it gets pushed out, the general idea is that, one, this side I always put towards my charge. I just think that helps better protect it. And then it'll get pushed out of the rocket or pulled out of the rocket, and then can open up. As it opens up and this creates drag, your shroud lines will start to come out of the end of the bag. If I pretend to do this, come out the end of the bag and go taut with your shock cord, and then proceed to pull your parachute out of the bag. Now, again, there will be that line that runs down the side of the parachute. This should pretty much, the deployment bag should just pretty much start to fall to the side. It will still be inflated, pulling drag, but as your parachute starts to open up and catch air, it will pretty much just create so much drag. This doesn't actually create much drag anymore. I do know some people that will run deployment bags as their drogue chute on high altitude flights where they don't want a whole lot of drag, but that drogue chute provides enough, or the deployment bag provides enough drag for them to get back down to a reasonable altitude to deploy their main, because you don't want to drift for miles when you're doing high altitude flights. But these deployment bags are available from a couple different companies. I bought this one from Rocketman Parachutes last year, no, 2 years ago. This was 11 of 22 I bought this one. I had this one for a little while. And I bought it with the drogue attached to it, but there are a couple other suppliers. It is solid Kevlar. I have flown these on 2 flights so far. I plan to fly them again on my level 3. I've got some 3-inch ones that I flew on 2 previous flights to test them. I'm going to fly them again on my level 3. That will be with a 7-foot pull down apex and a 4-inch spill hole, or a 4-foot 8-inch spill hole, and I'm going to be flying those. My pull down apex actually has that center line that I told you about to attach to, and my 4-inch spill hole actually has to run an extra piece of Kevlar around to keep this attached. Otherwise, this will just float away and you'll never see it again. And these are pretty expensive, so if you're going to fly them, you want to make sure you recover them. But these parachute protection methods, in my opinion, are a great way to protect your parachutes so you don't end up with hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of damaged parachutes that you can't fly anymore. I know every Rocketeer has a bin of crunchy parachutes that they're either trying to fix or get a friend to fix for them that's really good at sewing. Sewing is not my strong suit, but I've got friends that love sewing and have offered to help me, and friends that have done parachute repair before. So my plan is to try and repair a lot of my parachutes, and I have repaired quite a few parachutes that way. They're just very expensive, but these chute protection methods are a good way to preserve the longevity of your parachute and ensure that you'll get to fly them longer. Granted, I know recovery does factor into actually finding your rocket factors into keeping your parachutes, but if you're going to get them back, just a little bit of extra money on these chute protection methods is a great one. And if you're not wanting to like go after a chute protector or deployment bag, go pick yourself up some dog barf. It's only about 10 bucks, I think, with inflation is where it's at. I think I bought mine for like 6 almost 5 years ago. I've got a brick and still got over half of it, but that is like by far the best way to ensure you get your parachutes back. The more the merrier on dog barf if you're putting it in your rocket. Pretty much put as much as you can in there without it pushing your nose cone off. It ensures your parachute's going to come back in one piece. Now, a lot of guys that like to skimp on it because they're like, man, it's weight. It's a little bit of weight and a whole lot of air, because it's paper and air. That's all dog barf is. If you see how light and bouncy that is in there, which this has been sitting for a while, like it's mostly just air in there. So don't skip out on it. Protect your parachutes. These are the methods I have used. I've tried pretty much everything just because I wanted to see what was the best way to protect my parachute so I didn't have to keep spending so much money on them. If you've got other ways of protecting parachutes, please leave a comment down below. I know the other Rocketeers that are watching this video and myself would love to hear about other ways you have found to protect your parachutes, or which is your favorite method to protect your parachute. We'd love to hear it and we'd love to discuss. So thanks for watching, gang. I appreciate your time. Hope to see you all in the next video. Fly safe.